And good evening. Here we are. Welcome back to another live streaming, Friday live streaming, part of this new series on music theory for guitarists. Okay, first episode of this. Too many returns with the audio. Okay, everything should be sorted. I just pulled up this live streaming on another device to make sure that everything is working all right. Guys, if you join me live, please feel free to let me know how you can hear me, if you can see me all right, if everything is good, the communication, the sync between the audio and the video. Hi, Hans, how's it going? And thanks for joining this live streaming. I'm very good. How are you? So here we are tonight with the episode 2 of this new series on music theory for guitarists. Okay, we'll be talking about all sort of music theory for guitarists. In the first episode, we covered, the very basics, like how to find the names of the notes on the fretboard. We started talking about the music notation, the letters, the sharps, the flats. We also introduced something about some basic chords and the major scale. So tonight we'll be going a little deeper with all of these topics. Thanks, Hans, for letting me know that the audio is good. And welcome to everybody who's just joining this live streaming. Thanks for joining tonight's live streaming. And if you are watching the replay instead, thanks for joining this replay of this live streaming where we'll be going through a few music topics, a few music theory topics applied to the fretboard of the guitar. Okay. So the first thing that I want to talk about again is the way we find the names of the notes on the fretboard. Okay, because we talked about a few things. We talked about the chromatic scale last week. We said that in the Western music system we do have 12 notes. Okay, you're gonna have the A, B, C, D, E, F, G letters. A, B, C, D, E, F, G letters before you're back to A again. And you also have the sharps, so that you effectively find the chromatic scale this way, which is the scale which contains all of the 12 notes in the Western music system, all of them with a distance of half step or a semitone. Okay. Now, just to recap this, let's take the A string together and let's count the names of all of the notes on the A string. So starting from the A string as a ground floor, we'll count A sharp or B flat on fret number 1, then B on fret number 2, C on fret number 3 because we don't have a sharp or a flat between B and C, then C sharp on fret number 4 or D flat, D on fret number 5, D sharp or E flat fret number 6, E on fret number 7, F on fret number 8 because we don't have a sharp or a flat between E and F, then F sharp fret number 9 or G flat, G on fret number 10, G sharp on fret number 11 or A flat, and then on fret number 12 where you have the 2 dots on the neck of your guitar, you're going to be back to A, just 1 octave higher. So we can say that this is 1A and this is another A, 1 octave higher. In between you've got 12 steps, the 12 half steps or semitones, which contain all of the notes of the Western music system. The distance between all of them is always half step or 1 semitone. Okay, so this already means that, for example, if we want to talk about what is the distance between C and D, okay, between 2 white keys, if you refer to the keyboard, to the fretboard, to the keyboard of the piano, what you find basically is that if C to C sharp is half step and C sharp to D is another half step, therefore C to D will be 1 whole step or 1 tone. Okay, that's how you count the distance between the notes on the guitar. Now, the distance between the notes in music is called interval. So if we're talking about what's the interval between, I don't know, C and F, for example, okay, then we say that we're talking about the distance between the note C and the note F. Now, in this series, we'll be talking a lot about the intervals, but just to have an introduction tonight, what we can say is that going from C to F, I can count how many frets, how many half steps I have to get basically what is the interval, the distance between them. So I can say that C to C sharp is half step, C sharp to D is another half step, so this is one whole step, D to D sharp half step, D sharp to E another half step, so two whole steps, and then E to F, as we said before, it's only half step, so C to F, it's going to be two whole steps plus one half steps, so 2.5 tones of distance between C and F. Now, this is how we calculate intervals on guitar, looking at the fretboard of the guitar and counting literally all of the frets as a half step of distance between the notes, okay? But this is not the only way of naming the interval. As I said again, tonight is only an introduction to the intervals, just to get started with the intervals. But what we want to say is that this distance of 2.5 steps, or two whole steps, or 2 tones and a half, 2 tones and 1 semitone, is going to also be called fourth. Because if we refer to the major scale that we talked about last week, which is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, we'll be going through it in a minute. If I count the degrees, so basically the notes within this scale, I can say C is 1, the first degree, D is the second degree, E is the third degree, and F is the fourth. So this distance that I found between C and F, which you can play wherever you like on the guitar, can be called fourth as interval, or 5 half steps, or 2.5 whole steps of distance. Okay, so the distance is what makes the interval. Okay, now there are many types of intervals. There are major, minor, diminished, and augmented intervals. But when we talk about the fourth as well as the fifth, as we will learn in the future, in the next few episodes, we talk about a perfect interval. So the full name that we give to this kind of interval between C and F is going to be called perfect fourth. Okay, and if you wonder how large a perfect fourth interval is in music, whatever couple of notes you take, which have a distance of a perfect fourth, the distance will always be 5 half steps, or 2.5 whole steps. Okay, 2 tones, 1 semitone. You can say this in many different ways. Okay, this is the general rule to calculate these intervals. There is one thing in music which is called the interval table, which we'll be talking about in the future, and we will refer a lot about to it when we be talking about more difficult topics. And basically, what you want to know is that each interval has several types. For example, the fourth can be perfect, like in this case, as well as being augmented and diminished. Okay, but tonight we're only talking about the perfect fourth as a distance of 5 half steps, or 5 frets on the guitar between C and F. Okay, so this is to introduce that you can count all of the intervals, so the distances between two notes in music, any pair of two notes, of given two notes, as what is the distance in tones and semitones, or in half steps and whole steps, as well as counting what is the degree that you're talking about, referring to the major scale. So C to E, I refer to C, D, E, F, and I find 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and in this way I can consider this perfect fourth like the interval that I wanted to talk about tonight. Okay, so here you start seeing how important it is on guitar to name very quickly any note on the fretboard. So what we talked about last week was basically this notation with the 12 notes, the chromatic scale, and then we said you can start from any note of this chromatic scale, for example from the open strings, and literally count all of the frets, okay, as half step, and you will get the name of all of the notes on the fretboard. So if I want to find out what's the name of this note here, okay, I'm just taking a random note on a random fret of a random string, which is what I suggest you to do. You can test yourself every day and getting better at this, literally spending 30 seconds, only 30 seconds every day, every time you hold the guitar, asking yourself the name of literally two random notes on the fretboard, and figure them out every day. You get better and better testing yourself every session, every time that you that you are with your guitar, holding your guitar, okay? So we were saying, what's the name of this note? Obviously, with what we know from last week's lesson, from last week's live streaming on music theory for guitarists, I can start from the B and count from the letter B all of the notes of the chromatic scale. And I will get C, because remember, between B and C and between E and F, we don't have the sharp or flat names. So C on fret number 1, C sharp or D flat fret number 2, D on fret number 3, D sharp or E flat fret number 4, E fret number 5, F fret number 6, because between E and F you don't have any sharp or flat. And then we were on F fret number 6, we were wondering the fret number 7, that's called F sharp or G flat, okay? That was just an example. You can go to any fret, really. So this thing works. What is the problem then? The problem is that you are a little slow. Like if you use this kind of method only on its own, you can find the name of any note on the fretboard, but that will take a while. Now, sometimes you want to be quicker. You don't want to spend all this time to figure out the names of the notes on the fretboard. So there are a few other tips that we can learn to get quicker at finding the names of the notes on the fretboard. And in this course, in this music theory course, we'll be trying to have a look at pretty much all of the tips that we can find on guitar, all of the references that we can build. But starting from something easy tonight, what I want you to consider is that as well as you can start from the open string as a fret 0 to count the names of the notes on the fretboard using the chromatic scale, you can also start from the fret number 12 and go backwards. Okay, if the note that you're looking for is, for example, in this second half of the fretboard, or even more, if it's after the 12th fret, you definitely need to start from fret number 12. Why do we take the reference of the fret number 12? Because the fret number 12 is something that you don't have to calculate what's the name of it. Okay, because if I go here, I already know this is going to be a G. Why? Because the 12th fret on the G string will have the same name as the open string. And this applies to all of the strings, okay? So if you go to any of these strings, fret number 12, the name of the note that you are playing will be the same name as the open string where the fret number 12 is, okay? So this is fantastic. This is gonna save us a ton of time, because all I want to say is I can start from here, say B, C, C sharp, as well as I can start from here, fret number 12, and say B, C, C sharp, exactly in the same way. And if I have to cover this other area before the fret number 12, well, then it's much quicker if I start from the fret number 12 and I go backwards, okay? And I do, for example, B, B flat or A sharp, A flat or G sharp, and then G. And I can find the fret number 8 much sooner, okay, than I would find the same fret number 8 if I was starting from the open string, okay? When you are in the middle of the fretboard, let's say between the frets 5 and 8, that's pretty much the same whether you start from the open string or you start from the fret number 12. So it's completely up to you what is best for you to start from. But let's say in the middle of the fretboard, we'll be needing other references. I call this with my students the black hole of the guitar, okay? Because here is where everybody gets lost when they started figuring out the names of the notes at the beginning of the fretboard, and then around the fret 12, there is usually a black hole between the frets 5 and 8 or 5 and 9, where it's quite tricky, quite difficult to figure out these names unless you have more references. And tonight, I want to give you one more reference to find the names of the notes on the fretboard sooner, even when you're talking about the middle of the fretboard here. Now, what is this reference? As well as learning that the fret number 12 has the same names as the open strings, I want you to focus now on fret number 5. Now, if you've been playing for a while, or if you have friends who've been playing for a little longer than you, you might have seen people tuning the guitar, or better, checking the tuning of the guitar, doing this kind of thing. Now, why do they do this, and why is this helpful for us to figure out the names of the notes on the fretboard? Well, because there is an interval, so a distance, between the notes that we have as open strings on the guitar. And we need to learn this interval. Now, this interval between this string and the string below, and from this string and the string below, and so on and so forth, is always a perfect fourth. So the interval that we talked about before between the C and the F. Okay, we already know that this interval is made by, because we counted it before, it's made by 5 frets or 5 semitones. Okay, and we said this is the way a perfect fourth is called. We also checked that C to F is a perfect fourth because we were counting the numbers of the degrees on the major scale, like C, D, E, F, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, between the two strings that I have on top, this is exactly the same. Let's double check this together. If I start from E, I can say E, next letter F, next letter G, next letter A. So A is the fourth letter starting from E. That doesn't demonstrate that this is a perfect fourth. I have to go through the intervals and say F, half step, F sharp, another half step, G, another half step, G sharp, another one, and then A. So 5 half steps. And we know that when we have 4 letters where the distance is 5 semitones, that's called a perfect fourth. So we can say that between the letter E and the letter A, the two open strings on top, the 6th and the 5th string, the interval is a perfect fourth, or 5 semitones, or 2 tones and 1 semitone. That's up to you, okay? Now, the same thing will happen between A and D and between D and G. Let's double check this without going through the intervals with the semitones, just counting the letters to be a little quicker now to speed up this process, where we'll go back later on in the next few lessons. So if I go from A to D, I can just count the letters this way: A, B, C, D. So D is the fourth letter starting from A. If I start from D and I want to find G, I will do the same: D, E, F, G. So that's another fourth. But then here is the problem. Between the G and the D, we have a different tuning in standard tuning, the tuning that everybody knows, the tuning that you already tuned the guitar at with your tuner. And it's a major third. So between G and B, we don't have any more 5 semitones, we have only 4. And we'll learn in the future, we'll learn very soon actually, we'll talk about that in the chords in a minute, that when we have 2 whole steps of distance between 2 notes, that distance is called major third. Let's double check again this with the names of the letters. Between G, we said, and B, we've got G, letter number 1, first degree, A, letter number 2, second degree, B, letter number 3, third degree. Okay, and I can check that this is not 5 semitones and it's only 4. For example, starting from the letter G here on the open string and say G sharp, 1 semitone, A, another semitone, A sharp, another semitone, B, another semitone. So 4 semitones. I used 4 semitones. I needed 4 semitones to go from G to B. Okay, so this distance is called major third. So between G and B, I've got a major third. Then what happens at the bottom between the second and the first string? I've got a perfect fourth again, because B to E, if I counted B, C, D, E, it's a perfect fourth again. And the distance between them is again 5 semitones, okay? Now, you don't have to recap and remember the whole process. You just want to know the formula. You want to know the information that we are looking for, which is between all of the open strings, going from the top one to the first one, not the other way around. The distance that you have is a perfect fourth, with the only exception of the G and the B string. So between the third and the second string, this distance will be a major third. Okay, now why is this helpful for us to figuring out the names of the notes on the fretboard? Because if the distance between 2 strings, between the top one and the fifth, for example, is a perfect fourth or 5 semitones, what can I do? I can take the E string, go to the fret number 5, which is obviously 5 semitones higher, and I already know that the name of this note will be A, like the open string below. Okay, because I went on the E string 5 semitones higher, and I found the same interval of perfect fourth, which is the interval between this pair of strings. Okay, so basically that's the reason why you might have seen people checking the tuning going at fret number 5 and making sure that the fret number 5 of a string sounds like the open string below. So let's say this again. If you are on the E string, you count F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, and you check that this A is the same as the string below. And this is a general rule that you can apply to any pair of strings. So if I go now to the A string, the fret number 5 will have the same name as the open string below. So it's a D, and I can check this with the sound. Then if I go to the D string and I go to fret number 5 again, this will be the same as the open string below, G, okay? Between these two, we said I've got a major third between G and B, so only 4 semitones. Then I will have to go to the fret number 4 to find the same note as the open string below. So on the G string, I count G, G sharp, A sharp, B, like the open string below. And then between the B and the E string, I've got again a fourth, so I can go to the fret number 5 and find the same note as the open string below. So I will do B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, E. Okay. So when you want to check the tuning, you can use this trick. If the 5th fret of any string sounds like the open string below, those 2 strings are in tune. Okay. Otherwise, they might be not in tune. Okay. We'll talk about the tuning again in a few seconds, but now I want you to remember the way you do it. Fret number 5, like the open string below. Fret number 5, like the open string below. Fret number 5, like the open string below. Fret number 4 on the G string. This is the only exception, like the open string below. Fret number 5, again, like the open string below. So in this way, you immediately know the name of any fret number 5 and here the fret number 4 on the guitar. Okay, so if you are in the middle of the fretboard and you're wondering for some reason what's the name of the note here on fret number 5 of the D string, you don't have to count it, you don't have to wonder it, you just think about that's a G like the open string below. Okay, because we demonstrated that. And if you are on the G string, you will have to go, what's the name of the fret number 4? That's a B like the open string below. Then if I'm looking for the fret number 5, it will be C, because between B and C, I've got no sharps, no flats. If I'm looking for the fret number 6, that would be a C sharp. So let's stick to this example. If you were wondering before knowing this, what was the name of the fret number 6, the C sharp on the G string, you would have had to start from the open string here or from the fret number 12. Both ways, you would have had to spend quite a long time to figure out that this was a C sharp, and you would expose yourself to possible mistakes. While if you know this rule, you go to fret number 4, same as the B underneath, then you say B, C, C sharp. How long do you spend? 2 seconds to figure out that this is a C sharp. And this applies to any note in the middle of the fretboard. Rather than starting from fret 0, open strings, or fret 12, you now have another reference on the fret 5 or on the fret 4 if you're talking about the G string. Okay, so I think this is quite huge, and it goes together with a few other things we'll be talking about in the next few weeks to say how to find the names of the notes on the fretboard. One last information, which is quite obvious, but I want to say it just in case, is that if this string is called E, and this string is called E as well, as long as you know the name of any fret on the top E string, for example, fret number 5 is an A, even the fret number 5 on the first string will be A, because if the 2 open strings have the same name, the same fret on both have the same name, 2 F sharps, 2 C sharps, 2 Bs, and so on. They always are the same note, just a couple of octaves apart. Okay, actually 3 octaves apart. There are 3 octaves in between. So this is 1 octave, and this is another 2 octaves apart. I said the right thing before. Sorry. So it's 2 octaves and not 3 octaves. Okay, 3 octaves would be with this other E, which is on fret number 12. But that's another story. So that's how to figure out the names of the notes on the fretboard for now. Recapping all of the references you have so far, you've got the chromatic scale, which contains all of the 12 notes of the Western music system, and you can count them all starting from any note you like, for example, from the open strings. You also have the reference of fret number 12 being the same note as the open string, and the fret number 5 being the same note as the open string below. With one exception between the G and the B string, you will have to go to fret number 4. Okay, we'll be talking about more tips in the next episode. So if you are interested in learning all this, guys, and you haven't done it yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because every Friday I'll be live showing a few things about music theory directly applied to the fretboard of the guitar. So we're not talking about theory just because you need to know the theory. Yeah, you need to know the theory, but you need to know how to see the theory on the guitar, okay? And if you haven't done it yet, when you subscribe, hit the bell icon so that you get a notification when I'm going live. Just in case sometimes I change the day or the time for the live streaming, you'll get the notification just half an hour before I'll be live, and you can check the live without missing any part of it, okay? If you do miss it, Obviously, you can watch the replay in the next few days. But the nice thing of being live is that if you do have questions about the things that I'm talking about, you can leave a question in the live chat, and I'll be able to look at the questions and answer them while I'm live. Okay. Now, let's go back just for a second to the tuning thing. We said we can check the tuning going at fret number 5 all the time, blah, 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 this kind of thing. Now, when you do that, I said you can check the tuning. You can't really grab a guitar, okay, which is completely out of tune, maybe because you found it in your granddad's, house, and it's been there for about 25 years, and nobody ever replaced the strings, and you want to tune it. You can't tune it by ear, okay? Why you can't tune it by ear? Because in order to tune it by ear from scratch without any references, you need to have something called the perfect pitch. Now, unless you have the perfect pitch, okay, which is great for you, I don't, all of the people I know don't either, you will need a reference. So what you want to train in order to train your ears to get better ears, better ear training, is something called the relative pitch, not the perfect pitch. Relative pitch meaning finding informations like what is the same sound on another string, or what is the interval between two notes with a given reference. So what I mean is, if I give you this A and I tell you this A is in tune, then you can tune all of the other strings with this trick, or you can check that all of the other strings are in tune. If I don't give you any reference, just starting from scratch, you might get the right intervals between the strings if you have a very good relative ear, but then you might have to check the tuning with a tuner, and you might find out that you tuned all of the guitar a little lower, or all of the guitar a little higher than its actual pitch, which is A at 440 hertz. Okay, so that's the difference between relative pitch and perfect pitch. What you want to train, what is really important for you when you play music, is the perfect pitch. Okay, sorry, it's the relative pitch, unless you were born with a perfect pitch. So if you were born with a perfect pitch, fantastic, but you still need to train it. You still need to train it into the relative pitch. If you want to find out more, the best reference on perfect pitch and relative pitch that you can find on the internet is Rick Beato. Okay, if you don't know Rick Beato, I think you do know who Rick Beato is. Check out his channel. It's just great. It's just the best in all this. Okay, so if you check out his channel, you find all of the story of his son Dylan, who has perfect pitch, and you find out how he trained him to get the perfect pitch, and his experience on the difference between perfect pitch and relative pitch. So highly recommended to check out Rick Beato's channel and the videos on ear training, especially the things on perfect pitch and relative pitch. Okay, that said, on perfect pitch and relative pitch and the way we check the tuning, remember when you do this little trick, okay, you're just checking the tuning. You're not tuning it from scratch. Hi, Srika Sai. Hello to you. Thanks for your comment. May I know which budget mic should I use to record guitar and vocals at a time? That's a very good question. It really depends on what type of mic you're looking for. If you're looking for a cardioid, you can find amazing microphones by Rode, R-O-D-E, like the NT2, if I remember well. What I use is a Neumann KM184, okay? So check out Neumann and Rode, but Rode is more of a budget microphone, great microphone to record vocals and guitar. Or otherwise, if you're looking for a USB microphone, you can use the one that I'm streaming from now, which is a blue Yeti mic, which is a great USB microphone. So that means you don't need an audio interface to connect it to. You can just go straight to your PC. All of the other microphones, like for example the Rode and the Neumann, need to be connected to an audio interface, like the one that you see here on my desk, which is a Universal Audio Apollo. Hope that helps. Okay, let's keep going. So we talked about the notes on the necks, a few more tips. We talked about an introduction on the intervals, and then the other things that I had in the program were, the standard tuning intervals and how to check the tuning by ear, which is what we just talked about. We also added something about the difference between perfect pitch and relative pitch. Remember, guys, that while you're live, if you do have questions, feel free to leave them in the live chat, because I can read them from time to time and get back to you answering your questions while I'm live. If you are watching the recording and you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Okay. You're very welcome, Zrikar. Then the next things are major scale, formula in all keys and 2 shapes on guitar. What do you mean? We talked about the formula in the previous episode. If you haven't checked out the episode 1 of this series, Music Theory for Guitarists, go to my channel after this live streaming and check the episode 1. We talked about the major scale, and we said in order to construct from scratch any major scale in any given key, any key given of the 12 keys, you can use the formula tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So twice whole step, then once half step. 3 times whole steps, once half step. Okay, so if you start from C on the A string fret number 3, you can do C, 1 whole step, D, 1 whole step, E, half step, F, whole step, G, whole step, A, whole step, B, half step, C. So if you didn't make any mistake, you're back to C 1 octave higher. Okay, and we said you can start from any fret, from any note, really. Okay, so if I start from F, I will do the same. Whole, whole, half, whole, whole, half. Okay, you can even sing it if that helps. Obviously, only in C you find the letters without sharps and flats. We'll talk about that in the next episode, and we'll be saying how you can already figure out any sharp and flat in any key you might want to play without having to count it. Just before you play the scale, you will already know what sharps and flats you have. But we'll be talking about that in the future. For now, you just need to start. You need to train yourself with paper and pen, as well as the guitar in your hands, and making sure that you can start from any random note here and figure out what's the major scale on the same string using the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay, this rule. But together with this, so train yourself, for example, I don't know, if you are in G, the notes that you get are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So there is an F sharp. Okay, train yourself in different keys. But the other thing I want you to start practicing is 2 shapes, 2 easy shapes to see the major scale on the guitar, using the open strings and without the open strings. And for the sake of this example, we'll just stick to C. So we'll be playing the C major scale made by the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So if I start from C here on fret number 3, I can then play the open D, the E on fret 2, and F on fret 3 of the D string, then the open G, so use another open string, A on fret 2 of the G string, B as another open string, and then I'm back to C on fret 1 of the B string. So I get this shape. I'll get closer here. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. How do you need to train yourself? You need to train yourself playing this scale, saying the names of these notes, not just playing them, saying the names loud, out loud, because you want to memorize the names of the notes in the fretboard. This is a huge help, a huge reference. So you will have to do C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. If you sing them, even better. You learn the distance, the interval, the sound of them. Not that I'm a singer by any means, but that helps a lot. So you can do C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And when you reach the C, you go backwards. C, B, A, G, F, E, B, C. If you do it slowly together, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, C, D, A, G, F, E, B, C. Okay, that's one shape. But then, still starting from this C, but with the second finger, you can play the same notes without using any open strings. So what am I doing basically? I'm taking all of the open strings and I'm putting them on the frets 5 of the strings above for what we said before. So you will have to play C here, fret number 3 of the A string, D on fret 5 of the same string, okay, this way. So you use C and D. Then on the next string, you use E and F as you played before, and G on fret 5, A where you played it before, and B on fret 4, because we know that the B is on fret 4 of the G string, like the open string below. And then you play the next C on fret number 5 of the G string. So again, slowly. C, D, next string, E, F, G, next string, A, B, C. fingering that I'm using, but feel free to use any fingers, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. Obviously, guys, if you're not familiar with the way we number the fingers, thumb doesn't have any number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, index, middle, ring, little finger or pinky, however you want to call it. So you get, again, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, backwards. C, B, A, G, F, E, B, C, da, 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 da. Now, when a shape that you learn of anything, could be triads, could be scales, chords, anything, involves open strings, you can't move it in any other string, in any other key without making any changes. Okay, so you can't take this and start from C sharp and play the same thing, because you are not moving the open strings. Okay, but if you're learning a shape like this one, which doesn't involve any open string, as long as you know that the name of the scale is given by the first note, which is the root, you can move the root anywhere else on the string and play the same major scale in that key without having to know what notes you are actually playing. So if I start from fret number 6, which is E flat, so not the easiest to figure out, I don't have to say E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D, E flat. I mean, if you know that, even better. But if you don't, same. You do the same fingering, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, and this will give you 1 octave of major scale in any key on the fretboard, just doing this. Okay, you can even do it chromatically. C, move to C sharp, move to D, E flat, E, F, F sharp. I'm just going faster because I don't want to stay here 2 hours. G, G sharp, A sharp, B, that's uncomfortable on the acoustic guitar, and then you're back to C. Okay, obviously this doesn't make much sense on the same string chromatically this way, but you can go randomly. You can say I start from C, I start from D, F, G. Next day you take C sharp, D sharp, F sharp. You suggest the key and I play it. Okay, that's it. So that's what I want you to leave. I want you to have basically the formula: tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, applied to any key on the same string. Learn then 2 shapes in C with open strings, which is good to learn the name of the notes on the fretboard, and without open string, so that you can move it in any key. Okay. Thanks, Rika, for your comment. Very good technique to learn vocals too. Exactly. Although I don't sing. You've explained it in a very simple yet perfect way. Thanks so much for your comment. I'm glad that you are enjoying it. Thanks everybody actually who are here watching this live streaming or watching the replay of this live streaming. Really appreciate you taking the time to do so. So that's for the major scale. Then we also talked about chords last week. And we introduced 2 types of chords. One is the power chords, which are made just by the root and the fifth. You get the fifth counting the 5 degrees, the first 5 degrees of the 7 notes of the major scale. That's the whole scale. I count it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to 8. And if I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I find the fifth, which I use in the power chords. So the power chords are always made by root and perfect fifth, which is on the string below 2 frets forward, this way. Now, when you play the power chords, you can start from any note on the E and the A string. So, for example, from G here, and you do this technique: string below 2 frets forward. That's the fifth. So G5, the G power chord, which should be called mid 3, we said, it's made by root and fifth, and you can play it this way. Now, you might have seen, the power chords played this way. Which is, exactly what I said before. Root, fifth, root, fifth, root, fifth, root, fifth, okay, from any note. But sometimes you might have seen actually 3 fingers, so 3 strings involved in a power chord. That's still a power chord because you're playing root, fifth, and then you're just repeating the root note 1 octave higher. So effectively you are strumming 3 strings, you are playing 3 notes, but the actual notes involved are only 2, the root and the fifth. You're just repeating the root 1 octave higher, like 1, 5, 1 again. Okay. So what are the shapes that you need to know? You need to know only 3 shapes, and you can cover all the power chords on guitar. Okay. 1 with a root on the E string, and it would be 1, 3, 4. This way. Then you decide whether to repeat the octave or not. So this or this, up to you. Same from the root on the A string. From the root on the D string, you can't do this because of the different intervals that we learned between the G and the B string. So rather than doing 1, 3, and 4, you will have to stretch the little finger on the fret number 6. So it will look like 3, 5, 6. So this is root and this is 5. So if you want to play just the power chord root and fifth, you can still do so even from the D string. But if you want to repeat the octave, you can't go to the same fret as the fifth. You will have to move to the fret number 6. So a G power chord with the root on the E string will look like this or this. A C power chord with the root on the A string will look like this or like this. An F power chord with the root on the D string will look like this or this. If you're not sure why I said G power chord, C power chord, and F power chord, go and find out what's the name of the fret 3 on the E string, fret 3 on the A, and fret 3 on the D. Okay, that's a good assignment for you to figure out the names of these notes. Obviously, I'm assuming that you're not familiar yet with all of these notes on the fretboard. If you already know them, that's fantastic. You can stick to this live streaming, you can stick to this series and maybe learn more in the next episodes to come in the next few weeks, okay? So these are the shapes that I want you to know with the roots on E, A, and D strings for the power chords, and then we'll be applying them to something in the next few weeks. Then the last thing is the formula 1, 3, 5 for the major and minor chords. We said that even when we strum, even when I strum 5 or even 6 strings on the guitar, all of the chords that I'm playing here, major and minor, so when I call them either C major or E minor, G major, so without adding anything else to the name, like for example 7 or 9 or stuff like that, if I don't do so, if I only say major and minor, they are made by 3 notes, so they are triads. Triads mean they are made by 3 notes only. So that means even if I strum 5 or 6 strings, I still use only 3 notes and I repeat some of them. Check out this in the previous episode again if you want to find out why. But even in a C major, I'm playing root, third, fifth, and then repeating the root, repeating the third. So I'm not adding any new note after the 3 notes that make the C major. So what you have to know for now is that the formula will always be 1, 3, 5. So root, first note of the major scale, third note of the major scale, which is called major third, and then fifth note of the major scale, which is called perfect fifth, because we said before the 4th and the 5th degree will be called perfect, not major, not minor. Don't say major 4th, and don't say minor 5th or anything like that, because they just don't exist in music, okay? So perfect 4th, perfect 5th, okay? We'll see that better, as we said, with the interval table. Obviously now I'm putting many things on just because this way you can get used to the names, okay, to the notation and the names that we use. All right, so basically if you want to find out what's the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th of any key, you need to play the full scale, the major scale that we talked about before. You take the 1st note, root, the 3rd, and the 5th. That will make your major triad. Okay, if you want to figure out the 1, 3, 5 in a minor triad, you leave the 1, you leave the 5, you only move the 3 half step back, so you get root, minor 3rd, and 5th. And you get, for example, a C minor, okay, or an E minor, same thing. 1, 3, and 5, just moving the 3rd from the major triad, half step lower. Okay, so you are using the 1, the 3, and the 5 of a minor scale that we'll be talking about later. So what you need to know is just that when we build chords up, we use a formula which is 1, 3, 5. Now between 1 and 3, if we're talking about a major chord, the distance between the root and the major third is 2 whole steps. because you go one whole step from C to D, another whole step from D to E. So C to E is 2 whole steps. But then from E to G, because you have D to F half step and F to G whole step, it's 1.5. So that 1, 3, 5, which makes the major triad, is made by an interval of 2 whole steps and then 1.5. Now, if you remove the major third and you move it down to a minor third, you're obviously compressing the first interval of 2 whole steps to 1.5. Instead of doing this, you're doing 1.5. But from here to go to G, the interval is now wider, and instead of being 1.5, it's now 2 whole steps. Again, we'll be talking about that in the next episodes, but I just want you to know the major and minor triads are made by 1, 3, and 5. The 1 is called root note. The 3 is called either major third or minor third, depending on whether you are playing a major chord or a minor chord. And the 5th is always called perfect 5th. So the difference between a major chord and a minor chord is only the third, which makes the chord either happy or sad. Okay, just moving one note, the major third to minor third, you go from bright and happy to dark and sad. That's what you want to know for now in terms of difference between the major and the minor chords. Okay, the way you count it in terms of intervals, because we introduced something on the intervals tonight, is that the major third is made by 2 whole steps, the minor third by 1.5. Okay, we'll be getting back to it in the next episode, explaining all of the difference about the major and minor thirds, as well as all of the other triads, 7th chords, and all of the other chords that you need in music. So this is all for tonight. We went through a lot of stuff. If you are curious about anything else and you have more questions about specific topics, leave them in the comment box below and I'll get back to you. As well as if you have suggestions of topics you would like me to go through in terms of theory applied to the guitar in the next episodes of these of this series, of this live stream series that I have every Friday on music theory for guitarists, and it will be always here on YouTube. Okay, so make sure, again, if you haven't done it yet, to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, so that this way you'll get a notification a little bit before I will be live, and you won't miss any other topic I'll be talking about in these episodes. Or otherwise, if you can't tune in, that's all good. You can watch the replay and you can leave any questions in the comment box below. Okay. Also, if you haven't done it yet, you can actually follow me on Instagram. Okay, you'll find the link in the description below to my Instagram profile. First of all, because I upload other contents on Instagram that I don't put here on YouTube, like grooves and acoustic stuff, but also electric guitar, funk stuff, and similar things, as well as doing more live streamings on Instagram as well. So if you follow me there, you might catch other live streamings that I do there and ask more questions there. We can connect even there. That would be fantastic. Also, on Tuesday, my next video will be up. Okay. I'm currently doing a series on acoustic R&B and neo soul guitar. So if you're interested in that, you find the whole series. 4 episodes are out already on my channel. But next Tuesday will be an electric guitar video on funk guitar, and it will be the exercise that I suggest to all of my students to really nail funk guitar. Okay, so if you're interested in funk guitar, or in general, if you're interested in getting better at rhythm guitar, make sure to check my next video next Tuesday. All right. So that's all for tonight, guys. Really appreciate you taking the time to watch this live stream and spend some time with me learning some music theory. I hope this lesson helped you. Again, if you have more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Okay. Thanks to whoever will watch the replay of this live streaming as well. That really means a lot to me. And again, feel free as well to leave any questions in the comment box below. All right. You enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take it easy. Hope you're well wherever you are. And I hope to see you soon next Friday for my next live streaming. All right. Have a great weekend. Take care and see you soon.